Anyway, we're getting close to time here. And I don't know if we'll have a lot of people show up or not. I don't know. I never know with this collaborative work how I think it's like the most important thing that's happening. I find it terribly exciting. We also have people doing research about these community collaboratives.
Yeah,
And
and I'm going to
Martha Ann.
I would welcome Raphael University of the Incarnate Word, building our Center for the Americas, working on a wonderful thing about immigration right now, trying to build understanding. And I told him how often we talk about immigrants coming into our city and uniting around issues. So anyway, this is Raphael Hoyle.
Hi, Raphael. Nice to have you with us. I also see some other folks too. Good morning. It's 8 o'clock and we always start at 8 o'clock. So it's good to see all of you at the intersection this morning. And I do see some new faces. I also see some faces I know, but I haven't seen here maybe for a while. So that's good. Hi, Tom. It's good to see you. Today, we've been looking at collaboratives, and I'll say more about that in a minute. But and if somebody wants to interview me, but I'm the interviewee this morning. So if you have an announcement, we usually do about 5 minutes of very quick announcements. If you would, with the announcements, just put that in chat, and then I will you'll have a minute to speak, but just say, I have an announcement, and that'll help me keep track here. So anybody, Doug Beach, don't you have an announcement, man? I know you do. So I'm going to just start there. Oh, there it is. Go ahead and talk, Doug. Tell us all about it.
Trying to unmute.
Pathways to Hope. You're still muted, love.
Hopefully that's it. Pathways to Hope is registration's open. It's free. We're back at the Tobin Center, August 26th and 27th. Registration is live, so you can go there today and register. We'll be sending out a blitz today, announcing it to everybody. Probably the keynote speaker this year is Dr. Tom Insel, who just wrote the book Healing, about moving from mental health to mental wellness. Tom is the former director of the National Institute of Mental Health, and his message is community is the key. People, place, and purpose. In the midst of all the things that we've done with medicine and in the medical model, we're finding that community is maybe the most important thing in mental wellness and in healing and recovery. So we're very excited. We have a great lineup of speakers. We've worked with NAMI National this year to secure some of these national speakers. The photos, we're building the photo page today. But you can go to the agenda and you can see, we'll have Dan Gillison, who's the CEO at NAMI National. You can scroll on down if you can. Well.
Just give me a moment.
Okay.
Put your cursor out in the middle there when you scroll.
Do what, sir?
Put your cursor out in the middle of the page. Now scroll. There you go.
Yeah, there you go.
Thank you.
So go ahead and go to the, yeah, there you go. Well, anyway, we have workshops again this year. Many of our plenary speakers will be speaking on video. We're recording those, and our workshops will all be in person. But the whole theme this year is healing communities, and the people that we've asked are dealing with topics that deal with how do we in our community collaborate and find resources. And with the pandemic and with everything else that's going on, I think this is a very timely conference. And then we have networking sessions on Saturday afternoon, which you can see there. So that's what we have. And we hope everybody will come out and enjoy the conference because it really is. And this will be the first year also that 18 other communities around the country are also holding a Pathways to Hope conference on the same day, which is really quite remarkable. That's my announcement, Ann.
There you go. So I'm going to register because it's free of charge.
Yes.
In case you didn't get that. In case you didn't. And Raphael, you first day here and he's already got an announcement. What's up? Unmute yourself.
So is there anyone from the city of San Antonio here who is going to give an announcement about Welcoming Week?
I'm not, but you are.
Okay, well, this will be quick because UIW is playing kind of a side support role, but you may be familiar with Welcoming Week, which is a week that has been designated by the organization Welcoming America. And Welcoming Week will be held September 9th through 18th at a number of cities throughout the country and also in other countries as well. But this is all welcoming immigrants into local communities. And at UIW, we will be, I'm working with Tino Gallegos right now to host the kickoff event for Welcoming Week here in San Antonio. And that will be at the UIW campus on September 8th, and we'll be showing the Price of a Dream, a documentary by Trinity professor. I'm missing his name here right now, but it's a Professor Katsuo Nishikawa. So I'll keep it short at that. I really wasn't prepared to make an announcement, but I thought it would be good to just mention this to everyone. And if anybody has any questions about it, again, we're playing a side support role, but I do have my email address and my cell number in the chat. And really great to be a part of the group. And I appreciate Sister Martha bringing this good group to my attention. Thank you.
And so, Raphael, we will be having a collaborative time like this on immigration in the future, and it will be before that September Welcoming Week. So you'll want to make sure and have that information then and there. So I'm going to move ahead. It's 8:07, and we're going to do this just a little bit differently than normal because I'm going to be bringing you the briefing this morning. And so those of you who've run Zoom calls before, it's a little bit harder when you're trying to follow chat and talk and you've got many people. Anyway, if you would, consider yourselves all the interviewers. And I'm going to be telling you about Compassionate San Antonio, and there's a lot to tell. But when you're ready to ask me a question, if you would use your reaction, which is at the very bottom of the page. If you've not used that before, you click on reaction and it says raise hand, and then click on raise hand. What that does is it not only puts a little hand in the screen, but it puts you first up on my particular screen. So I know you have a question, and that'll really help me, and we'll try to go there. But we have a ways to travel this morning, and I don't want to overload you, but take a moment and just look at the icons on your screen. Look at everybody's face. And there's also an arrow on the right that'll go to page 2. I generally find that people who are on page 2 of things don't share their face as much, but just take a time to kind of read across who all those folks are. I don't know if yours does it, but my little cursor, when I move it across the screen, also makes a little hand over the faces. And I often use the hand to touch the head and bless it. Anyway, the reason that I have Joseph, your hair is so curly, man. When did that happen?
you.
I'm sorry.
You
I'm
know
just
what
like,
happened?
it grew. Or you put your finger in a light socket. I mean, I suffer from the same syndrome. Anyway, I asked you to look across the screen because, and I'm not saying this to be clever or metaphorical or inspirational. This is factual stuff. All these faces that you see across the screen, this is Compassionate San Antonio. And so to begin the conversation, we have to start there and recognizing that Compassionate San Antonio is more of an identity than it is an entity. So if you're trying to find Compassionate San Antonio and where it offices, you're going to have to hunt a little bit because, for one thing, not hunt a little bit because it doesn't exist, but it's all these places that all of you live and work. It's everywhere. It's ubiquitous. If we were to make a Compassionate San Antonio t-shirt, and I don't know why we haven't, by the way, it would read, you know, at the top, there would be a big we, W-E-R, Compassionate San Antonio, and then is, we are Compassionate San Antonio is me. And that's what Compassionate San Antonio is. And in fact, all of these collaboratives that we talk about, they are Compassionate San Antonio. It's not, like I said, it's an identity. It's planned as a cultural shift across the entire globe. But for us, it's just here in San Antonio because that's how cultural shifts work. It starts with me. It starts where we are, and then it goes out. So I wanted to get that clear, that if you're thinking that there's one office, there's one place, there's not. It's more ubiquitous than that. It's more everywhere than that. So what I want to do is I'm going to like give this of, you know, kind of how it quickly came into being, and then where it is now and where it is moving. And that's how these At the Intersections have been happening this summer. We've been talking about different collaboratives that have been shaped and formed over the years, and specifically in the last 5. But if we were honest with ourselves, and that's easy to do in this case, it's not just these last 5 years, right? On any of the collaboratives or any of the work that's being done in any of the collaboratives, because work was happening before in all cases, and we build on that work. Now, the beautiful thing, and I call this, you know, like the benefits of this kind of work that we do, is that I'll just talk about myself. I have been, the benefit that I get from this kind of work is I'm able to look back and see the growth that has happened in any regard. So Raphael, for instance, with immigration, we've come a long way, baby, and we've got a long way to go. But we have come a long way in terms of how San Antonio works together, right? To welcome those who are migrating through here. We've come a long way. And so my announcement is that we have opened another much larger migrant resource center, and you should have all gotten urgent action alert text on your phone about that. And I can stop and I can talk about that because that's part of Compassionate San Antonio. But they are in desperate need of volunteers and donations. Desperate need of volunteers and donations. So I'll try to put that into chat and come back to that. So that's my precursor. So that's to set the stage. So I'm just going to do this sweep of how Compassionate San Antonio came into being. You know, I can go way back. I've been here now over 4 decades and working in this direction, and others were working long before I was, right? And I had mentors in those clergy gatherings and those who first started to do interfaith work in San Antonio. And some of you know some of those folks, and you can be naming them in your head. But out of that grew the Gang Summit in 94 and the Peace Center in 95. And out of that, and all of that is networking. So there's not one thread, right? There are many, many threads, all of which are Compassionate San Antonio. But that led into the discovery and a TED Talk in I think it was like 2007 or 9. Karen Armstrong, theologian, writes some books. Some of you might have read her books, but she did a TED Talk. And the TED Talk prompt was, what's the best idea? What's most needed in the world to bring about the transformation that's necessary? It's probably written much better than my question, but she stood up and she talked about compassion. And in the original TED Talks, it's kind of like The Voice, and the community selects the best idea. And her idea was selected, and she received $100,000 for this best idea for the planet, was the need for compassion. From that, she brought together world faith leaders, and they wrote what I consider one of the strongest documents of our day. And that is the Charter for Compassion. By the way, I do have share screen open. So I know Martha Ann is just itching there. So if people find these things while I'm talking about them and you want to bring them up on screen for people to see them, I don't have enough hands to do that. I'm not that talented. So they wrote this Charter for Compassion. And so around 2010, the folks in the Peace Center and other places, Martha Ann being one.
November 2009 was the inauguration day.
There you go. She wrote Karen Armstrong wrote a book out of that called The 12 Steps to a Compassionate Life. I'm going to repeat that, The 12 Steps to the Compassionate Life. Get it? It's an easy read, but folks started to read that all over the planet. And a group of us started to read that together at the Peace Center, and we realized in the reading of it that the path to peace in this world is made through compassionate acts. That compassion is the path to peace. And that's kind of the beginning point. Martha Ann is showing you her thread at UIW that was happening at the same time, and our work has crossed and morphed and merged together. And so work started to happen then. And how do we engage compassion on a large scale to be more compassionate as a people? And so around 2010, we got more serious and more organized around it. What are we going to do? Book studies around the 12 Steps to a Compassionate Life formed all over the place. We started to notice it was kind of a movement that was happening. Cities across the world were taking this on. And I don't think Karen actually planned that there were going to be compassionate cities. They just started happening and started to grow and develop. And some of us grassroots said, we want to be a compassionate city. What does that mean? Started to research that, their resolutions, and doing gatherings, having people sign on to the charter. Anyway, we might end with that wonderful video on the charter. I might do that at the very end. Long story short, in all of that, those who were moving towards compassion in San Antonio did a lot of research in terms of other cities and what helped them to become compassionate cities and be strong. One of the things that we noticed that didn't work well was to sign a resolution by the city council early on, because it would go flat, like not enough was there. So we decided and spent 7 years developing community and becoming knowledgeable across community about what that means. Some of you know that we have 2-year city council terms. They can serve up to 4 terms, but only 2 years long. So a lot of things that can happen in San Antonio and have over the years might get a little traction, and then different people go into leadership, and then it just kind of fades away because it wasn't there strong enough to begin with. And so many of us decided we weren't going to have that happen. We wanted it to be so much in the culture already that when resolution was signed in 2017, that no matter who was in office, this work would continue. And I think we did that well, and it's only growing. So in 2017, the first resolution that was voted on by that new city council, and the first resolution to be signed by Mayor Nuremberg as mayor, was the resolution to be a compassionate city, to be a compassionate San Antonio. And that happened just a couple months. That was June on Karen Ball's birthday. And I came into my position in February. So I was in office a little bit, working at, talk about feral cats, pulling together every directory I could find on faith communities and congregations in San Antonio. Oh my gosh. And that's another whole story we could go into. Totally feral cats. And, but I have been working on that. He signed the resolution. It placed the work of Compassionate San Antonio from the city's perspective into my office, into the faith-based initiative. That's where it sits, in the city offices, but that is not Compassionate San Antonio. All the work that happened beforehand is Compassionate San Antonio. That has not gone away. All the work that's happened in the last 5 years, these community collaboratives, all of that is Compassionate San Antonio. One of the things that we've been working on out of my work with the city is the shifting mentally from like faith-based initiative into Compassionate San Antonio, so that people start to see in the faith community, in the business community, in the healthcare community, whatever the societal sector, they start to see their work as compassion work and part of Compassionate San Antonio. When the resolution was signed in 2017, I think there were 96, almost 100 compassionate cities globally. Now there are close to 450. So you get an idea of, the growth of this globally and not just locally, right? The best place for you to go, and I don't have it up. Hang on a minute, I can do this. I keep telling myself, right? The best place for you to go online to kind of find out about things that are going on in terms of Compassionate San Antonio. This came out of the grassroots effort that brought Compassionate San Antonio into being, is this website, Compassionate San Antonio. sacompassion.net, sacompassion.net. And these are some of my most favorite pictures here in this part. I love this picture. That was at the Institute. But this gives you some images of what, that one's one of my favorites, of what compassion has looked like here in San Antonio over the years. And you can start to see the diversity of it and the inclusivity of it. So when you see this logo, I haven't looked at this page for a bit, but this is the grassroots effort. The folks in community organizing that helped bring this together. There's the charter, and we're going to come back to that and hear it. Out of that has grown many things, like the Compassion Tree Project, where we planted tens of thousands of trees. The mayor has a Compassionate Citizen Award. Anybody can put names in for that. There's inspirational stuff here. There are things along the side in terms of what's happening locally and how to get involved. There are videos. It's all grown into, well, here's the intersection. Look at that. What we were doing this morning at the intersection is Compassionate San Antonio. It's grown into the Compassion Institute. We're in the 3rd year. That's Compassionate San Antonio. Oh, look, and here's the Compassionate Institute for this year. And it's not too late, by the way. By popular demand, we added another section, and Martha Ann is one of the co-facilitators. So you can still join in this year's Institute. So this is one of the best places to go to kind of find out what's going on in Compassionate San Antonio. And again, this part is being done by the grassroots effort. Now, I know, I'm pulling this up so I don't lose it. I'm going to come back to it, hopefully. I know that this can be confusing to people, that there isn't one spot. But I want to say it's because we're evolving and it's organic. We are about community in a different way. I know you've all heard the term siloed, right? This is siloed from this is siloed. Well, the thing with Compassionate San Antonio, it's not siloed. It's integrated and it's a mix, and it can be messy and wonderful and beautiful. And it all comes from that. Karen has her hand up. She wants to thank you, Karen, for modeling how this works.
Thanks for inviting me. And I would just like to take a quick public announcement to share on the overall Charter for Compassion. I'm calling up the screen here, that as you stated, if you go to the charterforcompassion.org, that's the main page, you will find there's this nice little head here that says, put your name on the co-creators map. We want to populate and connect, if I can get it to open, there we go. Populate and connect people who are doing the work of compassion. So you can go here and go to the map of creators, enter either your organization, if it's doing work in compassion, or yourself. You can up here, you can do register, and then that allows you to say whether you're representing yourself or a government, nonprofit, whatnot. And then you pick your primary interest, where you fall. What this map will do then is allows you to connect globally with other people who are sharing the same focus that you have. This is still only in Texas, but look how this is getting populated. So that's my public service announcement. Thank you, Ann.
You're welcome. And I'm just going to nudge Ann Horst here so you can start pulling up your thing that you wanted to mention about compassionate listening. So she can be doing that for a little bit. I want to note that it's 8:28 and our commitment, I'm taking a pause here. I'm going to continue rambling on and trying to pull together pieces so we can all see how this works. And we're learning how to make it all work as well as possible, right? But I do want to hold to the commitment of 8 to 8:30. I pretty much have given you the very basic nuts and bolts of history and where to find the information. And thank you, Karen, for connecting us to the International Charter for Compassion. I'm telling you, the resources on that website, they have a book list under every category you can think of. They have book readings that are international. The importance, I think, of all of this is that, one, and this is so important to humans, we are not alone. So when you're doing work, whatever you consider your work and contribution into our city, we know in all of these collaboratives that we have, we're not alone, and we're strengthened by that. That makes us stronger in our work. And I know in my work and moving in the direction, I did a lot of work, what it felt like by myself for a long time before those early 90s. But then I'd find another person, and I know many of you have experienced that growth, but we are also connected globally. And that can be a very exciting thing in this work. And when you start to work, say, on immigration through the International Charter, things really then start to move, because now you're connected to people who are working with immigration all over the world. And believe it or not, there are other ideas out there. And we start to pick up other ideas and enhancing those, adapting them, tweaking them into our own space. And so we start to, and you can start to see that, we become a better people globally. So we are so not alone in this work. So it's 8:30, those who might need to leave, thank you for being with us, and we honor and respect your time. I'm going to announce that Maria Villagomez, she's the chief deputy, I never get it right, city manager, deputy city manager, I think that's her title. She has been with us before to talk about the American Rescue Plan funding that's available. She has requested to come back, and she will be with us again next Thursday. She wants one more conversation. She's been having lots of them, and I'm hoping that she's going to be able to come back and tell us about some movement and how we can move forward. So I've noticed Lisa from Jewish Federation has her hand up. Lisa.
Hi. So
Hi.
I had a question. Maybe this has already been done, but I would love to, on my website, put the logo for Compassion San Antonio and show that linkage. And maybe it's already done, I don't know, but if we all could show that linkage from our websites and to Compassion San Antonio to kind of all show that we're part of this bigger movement, I think it would be really nice.
You can do that. You can do that. In fact,
Okay.
you can do both logos, but you probably, in terms of like community work, because you're just going to connect more, to connect to the one that I showed you, sacompassion.net, because that's
Okay.
where the plethora, and it also has like the city council resolution is posted there. All of this history is there. So yes, everybody can do that. Yes to that.
And if anybody wants to add my website, you are free to do so. It's it's smallbizsa.com, and it's a directory of diverse, underserved, and inclusive small businesses and organizations in San Antonio. And it's very cool. And it's tied to the Compassionate City and Charter for Compassion movement. And I just am very excited about where it's going to go.
Yeah. So it's been recognized. So there's a story of somebody who went through the Institute, which we haven't even talked about yet, and came up with this idea of this website, Anne's website, and now it's recognized by the International Charter as a website that needs to exist everywhere, right?
Yep.
So it's a great example. So Anne, why don't you put that link into chat?
Totally.
And I'm going to keep telling a little bit of the history. And now I'm going to even go a little bit faster. So
Okay, well, actually, before you go fast, I have to jump to the dentist. So I'm going to post two links. One is smallbizsa.com, and the second one is for the class that I'm currently in, the Compassionate Listening class, which I think is a fantastic follow-up to Charter for to CIT, Compassionate Integrity Training. If you've taken that, this is a fantastic follow-up. It's really in-depth on how to listen to people, how to be self-compassionate towards yourself. I think it's just an amazing class that everybody should take to save their marriages, to continue a great marriage already, to raise children, to listen to people on the street, to talk to the homeless. I could talk for hours about this class. That's how much it means to me. And I would love to keep promoting it. on every intersection and anywhere you'll allow me to talk about it. There's going to be another class coming up. I don't see the details posted, so I will get them and you'll hear from me, okay?
And she picked up that class. So think about continuing education of compassion. So the International Charter on their website, they have tons of classes, like I said, book reads and everything. And that's where Anne found this course. So kind of your continuing ed, right? And growth in compassion. So now I'm going to go a little fast forward. So this is kind of getting the team here together, because now I look on my screen and I see all the folks who are busy at work. We started this summer here, if you remember, and the community collaboratives that have grown. And so my work in the city, to help clear this a bit, is to build collaborations and partnerships and networks between the faith community, government agency, nonprofit orgs, community groups, etc. And if you look at the resolution that was signed by the mayor, the work of compassion is not set up in the city to only work in the city structure. It is only to work through collaborations and partnerships. And so we are living the dream and the vision of how this was formed by our community, by the way, and not the mayor. We have been fortunate that he is such a strong partner, and he has such a strong now compassionate leadership role nationally. He's also right now the lead for what's called the Compassion Institute. It's a different term there, within the US Conference of Mayors, which is the 300 largest cities in the country. And so he is the lead of compassion in that grouping. But this is what we've been at and looking at this summer. This is the work of Compassion at San Antonio. And so if we're trying to build, you know, like that image in our head, that organizational flow chart, it doesn't quite look the same as institutions, because it's not a pyramid. It's very circular. It's very horizontal. It's in fact the community leading the leaders. Can you get that? It's the community leading the leaders. So it's not top down, it's about partnerships. So like we work strongly, you know, with the mayor and the city, it's partnerships. The city hasn't told us that we're compassionate, but it has said we're, you know, it's affirmed we're compassionate. Let's grow together, right? But these are all the things that make up Compassion at San Antonio. Sacred, all the homeless and hunger work, Bridges to Care. When it says this collaborative, I don't even know how large this collaborative is. It's hundreds of people. The immigration work at the intersection, the Afghan refugee response. Think about it. All of this work is compassion work. Community welcome is partnered together and partners together congregations with new refugees in San Antonio to make home here. Housing via the faith community, the domestic violence prevention. We're going to be hearing from all of these coming up. The San Antonio Story Collaborative, how stories help in terms of the healing process. How we heal collectively when we experience collective trauma, like the pandemic, which we all experienced in different ways, but together. Uvalde, and how that went down. And that's, I need to move this one up here, don't I, Paul Furukawa, the Sane Society, although I have been dropping the E, much from Paul's, I'm gonna like arrow it out here, much to Paul's, that's what we're for, that, you know, that San Antonio, the San Society, that sacredness that we know is there, right? resiliency hubs. All of these things are afoot. And if you think about each one, you know, it may be former terminology that we might be more used to. Committees, and they still exist, but committees would form to work on different things, right? Teams, you know, the work with the initiative started with action teams. They're all not much different, but we also know that how we name things is also how things grow up and develop. And so now the work we're calling more community collaboratives. And the research, the most current research is telling us that the reason that humans are still alive and on the planet is not because of the survival of the fittest. It's because of cooperation. And that's historical research that tells us that working together has the largest impact and the strongest opportunity to not only transform our world, but to better our world and for future generations. I want to show you two things that are developing that we can look at. These are two new web pages that are developing. They're under construction. So, you know, don't take all of this like, well, take it to heart for sure, but they're developing. This one is on healing communities. It's on collective trauma. So as communities that suffer trauma, it takes all of us then to heal that community. And so the work of this collaborative is to find examples in San Antonio, things that are really happening here. I'm letting you read some of that a bit. And here's our map, but that can be replicated anywhere. And then you can go out, find these and do it yourself. Find Five Friends was started by a sophomore in high school here in San Antonio. During the pandemic, he found 5 friends and they each found 5 friends and they started to volunteer and help people and collect and feedings, housing, clothing, started by a sophomore in high school. You'll find them at every St. Vincent de Paul's, but this could happen in every congregation. This could happen on every college campus. This is not rocket science. This is collaboration. How we've changed in San Antonio, the National Night Out, which is one night, but you can go here and see how San Antonio encourages these national night out. They're actually one, you know, they're block parties, but to do them all the time, outdoors in your neighborhood. Porch Fest, this is recent in the Alta Vista and Beacon Hill neighborhoods. We have more, they just haven't all been put up here. And then putting here the 10 steps of collective healing. And this is also from research. And so I love this last 10. Remember, hate is not the opposite of love. Love can include hate, but is much more interested in growth, wisdom, and listening. And so calendar is going to be put here. That's new. That's coming out of the Healing Community Collaborative. And then I'm going to show you one more thing because I'm really excited about this one too. This is coming out of the Story Collaborative. See, I'm getting much better and faster at this. This is called the Story Portal. And this isn't even, you can go there, it's active website, but that won't be the ongoing address. It's being created so that other cities can replicate it. Story Portal Austin, Story Portal Denver, example. And so you can see and then this one, see, it's got a different look, but it talks about the collaboratives, this one in particular. And their hope is to reshape the narrative of San Antonio, what San Antonio is and what it can become. And so storytelling includes the current stories, it includes historical stories, this part is just, that's not what's going to be there, but that's, again, it's being worked on. Then it's this portal. We have found so many story projects that are happening in San Antonio, and they're being collected here. And so, and they're all San Antonio stories. And so if you're a teacher, or you work at a senior center, or you work in your congregation and you're trying to find a great story about something or somebody to share, you might not only find a great story, you might actually find a storyteller to invite whose story it is. And so then you can click on these, and then you can go into, hopefully it'll work. I did check this the other day, where I live, and some of you might be following those stories. So these are different kinds of storytelling projects. Some are videos, some are written, some are walkabouts. I think it's very exciting. And what we're doing is also learning from research and how people, humans, best collaborate together and best heal together. And we're building that together. And right now, and I'm looking at everybody on the screen, I am preaching to the choir. So I'm done preaching, and it's 8:45. But as you all know, I get so excited about this. I am willing to hang around for another 15, but only if you open up your mics and we have a conversation. And if you need to leave, God bless you. And we'll see you next week in terms of, again, we'll be looking at those ARPA dollars, the funding for mental health concerns. It's like 24, 26, 28 million that's being looked at and infusing into our community to help with rescue and recovery from the pandemic. So that's all I got. Whew. I hope, and one of the reasons I wanted to share this story too is that so you can tell other people as well. It doesn't fit the same way into our old boxes, but I believe what it's creating and what we are living is a way of living. And we have to learn together how to explain that to each other. Because, the thing I didn't mention is that the Peace Center, Compassionate San Antonio Grassroots, is finally going to college. And so this fall, it will now be within the Alamo College's district. And it will be taking the lead in terms of like the Compassion Institute, which may look different next year. We don't know. But I do have to tell you what the mayor is working on. I'd say we're working on it together, and we are working on it together. But working on developing some compassion training that is smaller moments of like the compassionate integrity training that we utilize. It's really over 20 hours of training. I know that Paul's in it. Martha Ann is one of the facilitators, and that's great. But for example, none of our city council members are going to take a 20-hour course. It would just, even though they would like to do that, I just know they're never going to finish it. So to develop something, and we've done it before where we've modified it and done it in like 90 minutes and really focus in on the system. But we're looking at developing something online and downloadable that will be given to every mayor in every city, village, and territory across the United States. Pretty exciting. And also looking at seriously putting in compassion training into all of our educational institutions in San Antonio. I mean, there are things being written up from pre-K, 4SA, through community centers. That is happening right now in our city. And I couldn't be any more excited. Given our context, Okay, I'm really going to quit talking and really hope somebody else starts talking. and opening their mics. Or we'll all just say, have a great day. Martha Ann, is that a hands up or goodbye?
That's a hands up. I am so grateful to be among this group of people. And Anne, I am grateful for your style of leadership. And it's okay for me to just analyze, because it's not that I'm praising you, Anne, it's that I'm analyzing leadership styles, because I teach a class on leadership at Incarnate Word. You constantly invite people, you invite gifts, you affirm gifts. You put gifts together in good ways. You build the positive. And Mahatma Gandhi said, you know, for every injustice or violence that we are against, there should be 9 positive things that we are building. So, and I observe your style of leadership, and everybody in the room still, gosh, you know, we're in this crowd with a leader that knows how to build the positive, and I'm really grateful. And then I'm going to go a little bit further. I'm doing all these teaching modules for the docents, the guides at the World Heritage Site churches. And I've been thinking about the leadership of the Franciscans there. You know, sometimes they were good, sometimes they were bad. But I think a good leader absorbs pain, but doesn't throw the pain and violence back at people. A good leader absorbs the pain and analyzes it and works to transform the pain into positive energy. And that's hard stuff.
I'm glad you're doing this. I mean, it's helpful for me to hear that analysis. And I have to say, you know, that I'm not able to integrate as eloquently as you speak. You know, some of the pain, I'm not really that great. I try not to take it out on people.
Yeah.
But, you know, but the junk comes out, you know.
Yeah, I'm going to make a little comparison, like,
Good.
you know, 10 different, whether you want to call them tribes or clans or extended families of indigenous people come into Mission Concepcion, and they're speaking different languages and have different customs. And I mean, you know, just think of 10 different clans coming together. And so the leader, the Franciscan, how do you keep inviting? How do you keep inviting people to live as neighbors? How do you invite them to work as neighbors? And so that they were inviting the indigenous people to elect their leaders, elect their little council. And we find enough of the text that there was, you know, the rivalry, like, you know, I want my family to flourish and I don't particularly care about your family. And then the whole language thing, what language should we speak? And that's really a hard one. And it's a hard one for us today. And I don't mean it just in terms of English. I mean, the way we speak, our voices. Are we trying to understand each other? Are we trying to build so that we will grow as mutual neighbors and friends, respecting each other?
So using that language of compassion, that language of love, whatever, language that we're using. Lori has her hand up. Lori?
Yes, thank you. I've got a question. To what extent is this compassion training or approach being suggested, recommended to personnel within the city structure? Specific examples here.
They're part of the Institute. So every
Well,
year, yeah.
The managers or the people in leadership positions at the different senior centers around the city. To what extent those managers and staff are being supported to attend the compassionate integrity training that is the institute that's being offered. So that's one thought. I tried to go to my local senior center and tried to recommend the institute to one of the managers. And it seemed that possibly that person got a little trouble with the bureaucratic structure in getting approved for that. So I'm going to push it again for her for next year. And I said, is there a supervisor that I could talk to really kind of recommend that you be able to do this? And she was reluctant she didn't want to rock the boat with her supervisor.
Yeah, well, Lori, what you can do, because I serve in that same department, and I don't know if Karen's, smiling inside, but she knows. So what you can do to help her, can you email me what you just shared with me? You don't even have to tell her name. You don't even have to tell which senior center, right? And she shouldn't have had any difficulty going to that. There should have been no pushback, because especially in the Department of Human Services, everyone is asked to go.
Okay.
Not necessarily required, but they are highly encouraged. So we'll help her out. You send me an email and we're going to move that forward.
Okay. And then
You got something else, Lori? Yeah.
Yes, I do. I've got just another instance. One of the young gentlemen who was I really love him, who comes once a week to pick up the recycling. He's part of the recycling bin guy that comes around. He has expressed very cautiously that he is getting flack in his department, which I guess would be solid waste. And he seems like such a nice young man. And I'm gathering that there's not a lot of compassion among the managers in that department. He's a young man of color. I want to support him. I'm so grateful for their service. And it seems to me that there maybe is a lack of compassion in that department. And some of those leaders in that division need to get some compassionate training.
All right. So again, write a separate email about that. I love how you tell this story too, in terms of wanting to support him. And that's exactly the right angle. So send me another one with that. And this is great. You're going to help compassion. Thank you. Tom has his hands up. Unmute.
Button, there it is.
There you go.
Thank you all, and to the faithful remnant who are still on. Let me reframe Sister Martha's appropriate big conversation of 2 or 3 minutes ago. My version is a little different and a little more urgent, angry. Yes, long-term, forever and ever, amen. Both and, us and them, compassion, unified, shared values, all of that very, very important stuff. And I don't mean to trivialize it with my shorthand. And short-term, vote in November, because if the anarchists, tyrants, call them what you will, win, we won't have the ground rules in place to do the long-term forever and ever unity. It will be stolen, hijacked, subverted by folk who do not share the larger vision of who we are as a country and who we are as a people and the role of compassion. And so for me, it's a whole different both and. Yes, of course, long-term unity, we've got to in order to survive as a people and a planet. But short-term, beat the bastards and see to it that the ground is still in place to do the larger issue. End of sermon. It's only Thursday. Thank you. And thank you,
You're
Anne,
welcome.
very, very much.
Well, folks, I am going to have to go. I have a 9 a.m. meeting with the Compassionate Cities in Texas. And also we've been trying to unite those efforts together for quite a while, and it's never happened. And then Uvalde happened, and there's been some traction. I encourage you all to consider marking your calendars for 9/21. It's the International Day of Peace, but we're thinking about, I don't know, I'm going to call it a gathering at this point, but a gathering in Uvalde of all the compassionate cities and possibly all the mayors that go with those: Dallas, Fort Worth, Austin, San Antonio, Corpus Christi, and Houston. And, but in making this statement that they're not forgotten, it's something that's being worked on. So you might want to just pencil your calendar. We don't have much more information than we're kind of mulling that day, but it'll keep coming. It'll keep coming. So, but it's 9:01, and Karen probably already left because she's in that meeting too. Thank you all for being you and part of the choir. But we finally got the choir together this morning, right? Finally got the choir together. Talk to you soon. Have great weekends.
Thank you.
Thank you.